Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead of them and their companies. I'm your host, Olivia Salmons, and in each episode, we'll uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Savannah Abney, co-founder and CEO of the Breezy company. Savannah works with entrepreneurs and small businesses to help them build credibility, visibility, and trust through strategic content marketing. Through the Breezy company, she helps founders turn their expertise into thought leadership by creating systems that consistently produce valuable content and strengthen their online reputation. Savannah, welcome to Founders Future. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure, and I'm very much excited to dive in and learn a little bit more about your journey. Savannah, with all of my guests, I do like to start at the beginning. So if you don't mind briefly taking me back to what it was you was doing before you started up the Breezy company, and then from there, what was the motivation behind it?
Not a ton because it was pretty much out of college. I did work one real job, if you will, for about 6 months. And then I started freelancing pretty quickly after
Awesome.
that. And I was doing content, I was doing project management, I was doing assistant work, basically whatever I could get my hands on to make money because I was a broke, just out of college kid. But my that first real job I worked, my boss there was a brand strategist. He ended up going out on his own and leaving that job too. We started working on clients together, and this is back in 2019, 2018 when we started together, and we were working to build out funnels, and the world was very different back then from a
Yeah.
marketing perspective, a lot, very much a funnel world. He built out these great funnels, do brand strategy, and then he'd bring me in for content. But I was just one person, and we also were typically working with small businesses and startups that couldn't afford big in-house teams. And back then there wasn't really a good market. There was like tons of Fiverr people, and then there were like huge PR agencies. There wasn't a ton in the middle for ongoing content. Even the small to mid-sized marketing agencies, they weren't fully in on that as a huge offering yet. We felt like there was a gap there. We actually started out the company as this like sort of marketplace for content, if you will. So you could go buy one blog post, go buy one social post, like the e-commerce concept. That did not work. That is not how people buy their marketing. So we realized that very quickly and we really pivoted. But what we really felt like at the time was important was to have a systematized sort of approach to content because that did not really exist at the time. People, obviously, it's extremely different now, but what
Yeah.
I found was people were getting put on these huge contracts with agencies, and it was a bunch of different stuff that they didn't necessarily always need. And we wanted to create a really scalable, streamlined system where they could get whatever marketing tactics they wanted and nothing that they didn't. So we launched the Breezy company as a subscription-based service, very different from what we had seen in the market at that point. They could pick whatever things they wanted to work on and what they wanted to do. It gave more ownership to the actual founder or business owner or whoever it was or the team. Maybe they did have some internal team, they just wanted to
Yeah.
outfit it a little bit. So we created a really scalable concept for marketing that we hadn't seen yet.
Beautiful. So obviously, since college, being spending a lot of time in the marketing space, you very much know what you're talking about. And as you're saying, before COVID, it was very much in its infancy of content creation marketing. It very much
Mhm.
took a boom. So you was at the front of that wave. And did you always have an inkling that you'd be an entrepreneur, or was that just something that naturally developed, obviously, as your journey did as well?
I did when I was a little kid. You're always asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? And
Yeah.
what do you want to do? And the thing that I wanted to do always changed, but the constant was, I want to own this. I want to run this. I want to have this thing. And I remember I was 6 at Christmas. I was 5 or 6, and I got gifted a Barbie cash register, when they put Barbie literally on any toy you could imagine. And I got a Barbie cash register, and I took that thing around with me and opened businesses all the time. And I would like ring people up and sell them stuff. And I would do services and then have them pay me for them. So always had the entrepreneur bug.
I love that. I had exactly the same set. I used to set up like a fruit shop and I used to get all
Yeah.
my family members to come around at Christmas and stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing. So you had the bug from early on, and naturally, obviously, that just led to your path, which is pretty cool. So
Yes.
let's dive into the Breezy company a little bit more then, just so the listeners can have some context moving forward. Naturally, as you said, you had a few pivots that you get going. I think it's very normal for obviously,
Mhm.
and especially in marketing, it's always forever changing in the modern world. So naturally, that kind of occurs. But at this
Yeah.
point in, who would you say is your ideal client? Who do you very much love to work with the most? And then from there, how do you help them? And how do you support them along their own journey?
Yeah. So twofold. So I actually do individual work with founders, which is
Okay.
one part, and the agency does something slightly different, a little bit more fulfillment. So On a personal level right now, I am obsessed with personal branding. I'm obsessed with founder personal brands specifically. And the reason being that for our entire history of as a company, which we've been around for 7 years now, I always knew I should be more out front, and I knew that was a connection point. And you know, the concept that people say people don't trust logos, they trust people. That's not true in huge companies because you have such
Mm.
much brand equity built in. But when it comes to small business and startups, it is true. And the way that you differentiate yourself in those spaces, especially in a very competitive space like marketing, is being yourself and is being an actual human people can connect with. But I just drug my feet. I didn't want to do it. As somebody who works in this space, I hate putting myself out there online. I probably haven't posted on my personal socials in like 8 years or something crazy. It's not really my thing, but I recognized I needed to do it, drug my feet, didn't do it. And about 2 years ago, I was like, you know what? It's time. I need to make this happen.
Nice.
And I started getting very obsessed with the concept once I dove in and really started to see the effects that I saw for our business, leads being higher quality, the sales cycle being shorter, overall, our perceived authority much better, more credible. All these things started happening. And I'm like, okay, if I'm dragging my feet on this, there's got to be founders everywhere who are doing the same thing and don't understand that they are their brand's most valuable asset because you're the knowledge, you're the power, you're the vision that started this thing to begin with. And people want to understand, especially now, buyer behavior has shifted so dramatically. Trust in institutions is down so much right now, and that includes how people behave when they buy and how they're marketed to as well. And so you have this unique position right now where you can really connect with an audience and set yourself apart if you're willing to put yourself out there. So I actually now do tons of coaching and consulting, and all my personal content is very much directed at this personal brand for founders concept. And then our agency, we really tend to work with small businesses, startups, and solopreneurs. And there's a lot of crossover there because solopreneurs tend to need to be out front and aren't. They're still hiding behind logos, things like that. So there's some natural crossover there. But in terms of the agency, we love working with businesses that are hard to explain, if that makes sense.
Oh,
So
okay.
very
Interesting.
complicated offerings, need a lot of education around it. So we'll work with we're agnostic. So we're cool with working with whoever, but if we can work with really interesting tech companies or healthcare, or we worked with a mechanical engineering firm one time that specialized in nuclear energy. That was quite the
Yeah.
quite the account to work on. So many layers, so much complication, but that's really interesting for us. And those people probably need content more than just about anybody to be able to really show what they know and how credible they are. So those are two of the lanes we're working in. I kind of work more just operationally to keep the agency going in the right
Cool.
direction. But for my personal work, I really love working with founders one-on-one for their personal brands.
Beautiful, I love it. And as you say, they do come hand in hand because naturally, as you get to a point as a founder, you do need to keep scaling, and having a personal brand is definitely part of that. And
Yeah.
again, it is since COVID, obviously, it's getting very saturated in the market. Marketing is becoming so much harder and forever changing.
Mm.
And even if you look at the bigger brands, they're all pairing to have personal brands alongside it, or even
Mhm.
someone else's personal brand to get where they need to be as well. So it is
Yeah,
very much just like leaning into authenticity and making sure that you're just finding those right kind of people. And that's essentially what marketing is.
right.
So just using that psychology again, which is a great
Absolutely.
thing. And then
Absolutely.
obviously moving on from that as well, I take it you're very much in the trenches when you are with your clients. What is your approach or what is your style?
Yeah, so it totally depends. I would say that like for my personal brand clients, it's so customizable. I was actually talking to a new potential client yesterday and I showed her a few kind of ways we could work together. She's like, this isn't quite full right. And she starts telling me all the things she wants to do. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go build you out a completely new, fresh plan because this work is very, very personalized, which is why I really enjoy it. Spent 7 years building an asset that I think is great. I think every entrepreneur should have multiple assets that they can either sell one day or as passive or whatever. But I got obsessed and I got pushed into this idea that you should never trade time for money. And I've really gone back on that in this past year. That's such an entrepreneur concept that's really pushed. But that's actually where the joy of work is found for me. Like, I love actually, I had a coaching call with a client yesterday working on his personal brand. And for an hour, we're just brainstorming and
Love
talking about
it.
ideas and doing this. And there's so much fun and joy in that. So I think something that I don't want to be in the trap of, I want to have passive assets. I want to have these things I'm building, of course, but just like really working with individual people. And I know I'm getting a lot off track from your question, sorry, but
You're good. No,
but
still
in
relevant.
terms of
Fine.
working with them, I like to make it very custom to what they're trying to do. It's usually two directions, I'll say. So sometimes I have a client come to me and they have a current business that they love and they've been
Yeah.
building it, but they're getting beat by their competition a lot because they have actual human connection to the businesses and they're getting beat out by that. Or they just know they should have been doing this a long time. They've hit kind of a a plateau. They know they kind of need to take their stuff to the next level. And
Yeah.
so I'm building their personal brand purely to bring visibility, attention, and opportunity to
Sure.
that business. That's
Yeah.
one direction you can go. The other direction is I do work with multi-venture founders. So one of the clients I have right now, he's amazing. He invented this really cool commercial toilet that is like self-cleaning and it has all this technology to it. It's really interesting. And now they're doing a B2C version as well. So they're going to the retail home market as well. But when I started talking to him, the reason we started talking was to help bring visibility to this thing they're doing. He was like, but I don't want to just be known as the toilet guy. And I'm like, that's fair. I understand that. And he's like, I already have all these other ideas. I actually have this business idea and this one. And I want to invent this thing. And I'm like, oh, you're a builder, you're an inventor. That's who you are. So let's
Mm.
position you as that. And then you can use that brand to bring attention to these different businesses you
Yeah.
have, but you're not locked into one thing. So I also work with people from that perspective as well. Everything from their online positioning to podcasts they should be on to what their content is that they're putting out there. A book, he wants to write a book at some point. I'll work with him on that. So that's really fun to go that direction, I think.
Yeah, for me, that kind of sounds like more the thought leadership side. As you say, it's like you have your own brand, and from there, you can
Yeah.
string off and do whatever you need to do, those multiple sorts of incomes. And then,
Yeah.
even on the side, as you're saying, using your personal brand to like very much enhance the business you have and use that authenticity to really take you in the next level. And by
Yeah.
the sounds of it, you must really like to take on a challenge because these are very like nuanced businesses you are helping out. Especially like when you was mentioning on the agency side of this, the ICP is quite wide, but in the same way,
hmm
very niched because they're like
Yeah.
all very different within the same aspect. So that's
Yeah.
quite cool. One
Yeah.
thing I'm very curious to find out, and actually with your experience in marketing, like how you go about gaining your own customers. So what channels or methods are you just really finding most effective at the moment in finding those right people to work with?
Yeah. So that has changed like so much. The
I
first few
imagine.
years, man, you just threw enough money at Google, you were getting
Yeah.
leads and you're getting good leads. As long as your ad was fairly decent and your ICP was fairly targeted properly, you were getting leads and it was like crazy. And then we went through a period, I'd say probably 2 years later, that cold email was just incredible. Just I'd have 5 pitches a week. We were closing at a crazy rate. It was really good. And in the past 2 years, things have changed so much for services like ours, for service-based businesses in the marketing space that aren't a direct ad buy and aren't paid. So organic is very different because I'm actually finding we are leaning more into referrals probably than we ever
Okay.
have. We're leaning more into the organic side of things than we ever have. And honestly, we're really pushing my personal brand. That really is I'm seeing probably the most traction in terms of really good leads from that,
Yeah.
which I know is self-serving because that's what I also do. But I
Well,
do
practicing what
I
you preach, I
do it
guess, is a
because
great thing.
yeah, I do what I preach. So those are some of the methods right now. We have
Cool.
definitely, as a business, pivoted a bit more. And I think part of this is the AI revolution. I think it's the market changing, it's buyers changing, but we've actually started leaning more towards a boutique and bespoke feel. We always
Okay.
were a very regimented company, if you will. We had very specific systems, very specific ways of doing things. And we
Yeah.
do have a framework we use and that we believe we call it the reputation pillars. We believe it's the 4 pillars that you need to follow to have a powerful online reputation. I think marketing has actually become reputation engineering more than anything now. And that's the idea that we latch onto. That's kind of what makes us unique. But instead of having this very standard subscription everybody has to be on and it being this, at one point I thought, let's be the Netflix of content. That was like my like vision. But I just think that's changed so much because people feel now it's not good, but they feel like they can get a really good product out of AI. And
Yeah.
so that's already systematized as it is. That's already very systematic. So now, where you really, I think, as a marketer, can be unique is being more bespoke and being more
Yeah.
human, honestly. So we're actually really trending our agency more that direction. And that's
Okay.
definitely what I'm doing with the founder personal brand piece too, because I think
Yeah.
that's how you break through that AI crap is that you are yourself and you're a human and
Yeah.
you have a unique point of view that other people don't have. So really leaning into those things.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And even to what you said, like it really grinds my gears when people are relying on AI for their marketing, and it's very much
hmm
affecting like your industry at the moment as well because everyone's just
Yeah.
very much thinks they can do it themselves. And don't get me wrong, there's some people that can, but you'll end up just sounding so generic and so much like
You just
everybody
sound like
else.
everybody else. I
So
don't
as
know
you
why
say,
I'd pick you when you sound like everybody else.
literally you can sound like Steve from down the road and you wouldn't even know a difference. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's why I think the personal brand, the big trust recession everyone keeps talking about is coming in. But it is like
Mhm.
AI is very much having its first effect on your sector, particularly in marketing, where it is
Yeah.
taking away from the crowd a little bit. So you've gone more of the boutique, more of the custom style. So as you say, very much you can adapt to your clients, make sure you are building in
Hmm.
with them and make sure they sound unique on the way out of it as well, which is really cool. Do you run any form of advertisement or anything online just to maybe bring a little bit more consistency to yourself or even amplify the messages you're putting out there?
So actually, this is wild, and I know this is very not according to the industry, but we actually stopped all paid ads a couple of months ago.
Okay.
We the past 2 years of our business, we did better from a revenue perspective than we ever had, and worse from a profit perspective. And that's something that entrepreneurs I have found get that's like such a trap because top line revenue is always the thing you're chasing. It's always the thing I was chasing. It's the
Yeah.
sexy thing, it's the thing you want, it's the thing that
The
makes
wrong
you a
number.
$1 million company, it's all this stuff. And, but does it matter if the money is not actually in your pocket and helping you live the lifestyle you want to live? And so the past 2 years, we have invested more in outbound and more in infrastructure. We launched our own app. We did all these different things, which were great. But at the end of the day, it wasn't actually churning the profit we want to as a business. And I have two other partners and truly making this a lifestyle business for us. And that's the point. We all have different things that we do too. All of us are serial entrepreneurs naturally. I even have a couple other like irons in the fire things I want to do right now that I'm very into. But all that said, I was like, we're not getting the return on this that I feel is
Yeah.
effective. Let's see how Q1 and Q2 go. Let's just pause this for now. Let's see what we get from referral, organic, my personal brand, these things that we see are actually generating stuff without it being a huge cash flow. And let's just get back to really making this what it was supposed to be, which is a very profitable business. So yeah, that's what we're doing right now. I think that'll change, I'm sure, later in the year, but yeah, that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, and again, a lot of founders I feel like do focus on that wrong number. They see revenue and they're like, "Oh my God, we're making loads and loads of money." But if your profit
Yeah.
isn't keeping up, that's the
You're
balance
not
sheet to be
making
looking at.
loads of
You're not making
money.
loads of
That's
money.
the
The business is
thing.
making money and the business is looking
Yeah.
good. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
it's the same aspect for everyone, and a lot of people do get confused with that number. So again, it's good to take a step back, reevaluate what you need to do, make sure your profit is as good as the revenue coming in, and those margins
Yeah.
aren't just dropping below the waistline. And I know you
Yeah.
do have a team. So what does the dynamic look like within the agency or within your personal brand itself? Is helping you out on the back end, Savannah?
Yeah. Yeah. There's three partners. Myself, Josh Webb, and Steve Soto are the three of us. I'm in kind of that CEO chair, operations, kind of overall business stuff. Josh is the CMO and Steve is the CTO. So he continues to help us build out the app and think about ways we can use AI in a really intelligent human sort of way. And Josh is leading the overall vision for our market. And then we have a team of 5, 6 people right now, a few full-timers, a few part-timers. We have a video editor, multiple content creators, a back-end developer for site stuff. We have a great design team, and I do have help for my personal brand stuff. I produce a ton of content. One of
Nice.
our content creators, she's amazing. She does all of my like admin work around that. And then I also have a video editor that works with me. And then I do produce a good bit myself. And I do some of the internal content for the team too. So we're a pretty lean team, around 10 of us or so. But I also chased that for a long time and thought the bigger the team, the better. Top line revenue, big team, make these lists, do these things. And now I'm like, you know what? I just want to do really good work. We feel really good about working with people we really like, making good money. And sometimes that can be accomplished just fine with a lean, a small team.
Small but mighty. I think that's the way to describe it. As you say, it's everyone has their individual jobs. It sounds like you've got a nice balance as well that can feed your personal brand mission and then obviously the agency as well, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool. And they do
Yeah.
cross over and intertwine. So it's nice that you have that support.
Yeah.
And obviously with the three founders, again, you all bring a different dynamic to the situation.
Yes,
It's quite
absolutely, for
quite
sure.
important, I think, as well. And then obviously with that being said, like what are your ambitions or the visions for the company moving forward? Like when you think of maybe the next 6 to 12 months, like what are the goals or the targets that you're hopefully looking forward to achieving?
On a personal level, I'd love to continue to fill out my founder personal branding work. I'd love to get several more recurring clients. I love doing projects too, but I'd love to be working with them on a consistent basis. I have a lot of kind of dreams myself of writing a book this year. I'm about to launch my own site all around founder personal branding that's coming in like the next couple weeks, which I'm super, super excited about. A bunch of stuff on that horizon. And then for the agency, I want us to continue to work in, like I mentioned, in a more bespoke boutique way. I want us to be able to go even deeper with clients and do even more work. We are also looking for a little more of a high ticket client, still in that small to mid-sized business range, but people who are already like very passionate about marketing and want to be doing it really well and want to do it in a really customizable human way that feels really cool and really unique. That's who we're looking to attract now. So I'm hoping over the next year we continue at that like solid top line revenue, but far more profitable from a margin perspective. So that's something we're really working towards. I'd love to keep the same team we have. I don't really feel the need to expand it. I love people we work with. They're wonderful. Would love to keep all of them and just continue to work with really cool, interesting clients.
Beautiful stuff. So it sounds like just more of the same, but a little bit better. And it just
Yeah,
goes a little
pretty
bit more
much.
deep with what you're doing, which is
Yeah,
a really cool aspect. And I suppose
yeah.
probably you seem to be taking everything in your stride, even with the pivots you're making, they're very like tactical. So like where are you probably finding the biggest challenge for yourself at the moment, either within the business or even taking those next steps?
Yeah, I think the market probably is the biggest piece of it right now. The AI piece is for sure every marketer on the planet, and everybody has a very different opinion, and it's very polarizing and very controversial, whatever. So, trying to learn to navigate that for me, using these things as tools, but not replacements for humans, and trying to convince clients of that, I think that's one of the biggest pieces of. There's still a kind of a misunderstanding of like how to use these things and where they're okay and when they're not, and how your audience is perceiving. I was having a conversation with a client yesterday, and he was like, "Oh, this looks really cool, and I want to do this, I want to do that." And I'm like, "Okay, but would your audience like those things?" And he stopped and he was like, "Oh, yeah." And I think there's still a misunderstanding of that. Like a lot of people still, as a business owner, like you just want to do what you want to do, or you want to talk about what you want to
Very
talk
true.
about. Even as a content creator, you have to look at your analytics and go, "Okay, I made that video about that thing, and it's not my favorite thing to talk about, but I got a ton of traction on it. So I have to talk about what the audience wants. Like I have to serve the audience." So that's a big kind of piece. It's more of a philosophical thing we're working through, I think,
Yeah.
in the space. And then just continue to figure out how to pivot towards a little higher ticket client. We haven't worked on that as much the past few years. The volume was enough. We didn't feel like we had to go that direction, but now things are very different. So that's a pivot we're going to be continuing to problem solve how to get there.
Nice. Yeah, and to go back to AI, it's definitely the like the shiny on chip syndrome at the moment going on. It is because it's something new, it's making their life a lot easier, so they're just going to implement it
Hmm.
in. But exactly as you said, it's that like psychological battle. It's like the old school rule of marketing, put yourself in someone else's shoes. How are they
Yeah.
going to do that? What is going to pick up the traction from
Yeah.
them? Is it worth your time? Maybe, but in a like sensible way, integrate it in the way that is useful to you, as you say, as a tool and immerse it properly, but don't let it take over everything. Again, we
Yeah.
kind of mentioned that at the start of the podcast. So
Yeah.
I like the thought train behind that, just making it
Yeah.
immersive in your business the way that it suits you and allows you to use it as a tool, which is a really cool aspect.
Yeah.
And I do have one final question for you, Savannah.
Yeah.
So, if you could go back in time to a younger self and you could only leave yourself with one piece of advice moving forward, something you know now, but that you didn't know back then,
Mm.
what would you say to yourself?
You have so much less control than you think you do. You have control over your effort and attitude, and that is literally it. I think, especially when you're young, and I naturally have a very strong internal locus of control and believe I can will anything into being and manifest things as I want them. And some of that is beautiful as an entrepreneur, and to have that sort of like fortitude as a human being is great, but it also will cause you a lot of anxiety and stress in your life. And when you start to realize that you can just channel that into really hard work and then leave the results as they're going to be. And I
Yeah.
actually have this phrase, it's a Latin phrase, amor fati. It's my favorite, love of fate or love everything that happens. And I definitely did not live by this 10 years ago. That's for sure. And even it's still a struggle to this day. But I think as a business owner and entrepreneur, you think you have control over your destiny, but you really don't. You have control over how hard you work and how much effort you put in. And you really have to leave the results as they're going to be. And
Yeah.
that's something that if I was younger and I could say that to myself, I would have probably saved myself a lot of heartache along the way, probably even as an adult now. But that's why I have this here to remind myself of it.
Yeah. Beautiful. And I've actually been staring at it the whole time we've been speaking as well. Very well placed. Very well placed. But Savannah, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your incredible journey and insight with us. Where can our listeners reach out best to work with you or connect with you if they would like to do?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Savannah Abney, and then Instagram is Sav Abney, and I also just launched a YouTube channel. Tons of video content on there, so check that out. You can just search Savannah Abney and I'll pop right up.
Beautiful stuff. And thank you again, Savannah. I really appreciate your time today. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to go and check out Savannah Abney. Drop her a message, as you just said. I'm sure she would love to hear from everybody. And do not forget to subscribe to Founders Future via wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts. And if you are a business owner, specifically a coach, consultant, or agency owner, and you're really looking to scale your business and you want to enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to hop on a call with one of our team and discover how we went from zero to $30 million per year in less than 3 years. But until then, keep on climbing, and we'll see you on the next one.